Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you this morning with a weekly reads and this week's book haul or mail haul. I got some stuff in the mail from some subscribers, and pretty pleased to show that off. And like I said, I wanted to show you what I've read the last, it'd be about 2 weeks. I did get a couple books finished, one of them being a very big project I've been working on for quite a while. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you and show you where I'm at. So without further ado, let's look at what I got finished in my reading. So a couple weeks ago, I got done, I read this really short fiction book called The Reader by Bernhard Schlink. And this was an interesting book. This is it was okay. It's not one that's going to stay in my collection. I will unhaul this. The Reader is about a 15-year-old boy who he gets sick, and one day he collapses on the street, and the lady that's in the book, and so the boy's name is Michael Berg, and Hannah, a 36-year-old woman, rescues him on the street and takes him home. And the boy comes down very, very sick, and he's sick for a while. And when he gets better, he wants to go thank the woman for saving his life, for not leaving him on the street. And so the boy goes to her apartment and takes her flowers. And anyway, he's very shy to begin with, and then he goes and he finds this lady a second time, and anyway, he goes to thank her, and what started out as a thank you turns into a relationship, a romantic relationship between a 15-year-old and a 36-year-old. Kind of odd, but anyway. This is about a year-long relationship between the two, and it is a physical, intimate relationship. And then that's like the first 100 pages of the book. And it's not like extremely graphic or anything. You know what's going on, but it's not graphic, but it just kind of goes over and over and over. And this relationship becomes an infatuation. And after about 100 pages in the book, about halfway through, the girl disappears. The lady, Hannah, disappears. And later in the second half of the book, she reappears when they are doing some Nazi war crimes. There is the main character is now in college, and he is studying law, and they are going to his law class is studying the Nazi war crimes that are happening, and there are 5 ladies that are brought up on trial who were in charge of some of the camps, and Hannah is one of them. And when he was in that relationship, he had no clue. He didn't know anything about her, because she would never tell him about her past. She would let him talk, but she wouldn't talk. And so anyway, she comes up on trial. She gets she's convicted, and then the whole book is about this relationship between the two. And of course, the title is The Reader, and so they get this unique relationship. Not only that physical side, but they also have a intimate reading books relationship, where the boy reads books to her, and then later on, as a man, he will read books to her. And so this whole book plays out. It's just over 200 pages, and yeah, I didn't really care for it. So this one's going to be unhauled, but I did get that finished. I just was not a big fan of it. I don't know that I ever really got the major point of the book. So that was the first book I finished. Now, the next book I finished has been it was a buddy read back in March, The Civil War, a narrative by Shelby Foote, Volume 1. So this is over 800 pages long. It is a little bit slower paced than a lot of the books that I read. And so I had started it back in March, and I think a lot of the reason I didn't get it done before then is just what was going on in life. March, April, May is definitely the busy season of teaching and coaching for me. And I thought I could get it done in March, and again, it extended into June, so obviously I did not. But it was a good book. I will say it was a good book. I'm glad I read it, and I will read volumes 2 and 3. I will have to take a break from Shelby Foote, but I will get back to volumes 2 and 3. This book starts at Fort Sumter, just like it says, and goes to the Battle of Perryville. It hits all the major characters with some pretty good detail, talking about all the major generals, the politicians. It's kind of neat how Shelby Foote gives a description of all of these people, the physical description, their what are they like as a character, how does that relate to the war, and how does their personal little quirks, how does that affect the war itself and their relationship with all the people around them. It was just a good look at the Civil War. It also will be good to have read this before I go find the Civil War, the series by Ken Burns. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I have never watched the entire thing. Unbelievably, I have not watched the entire thing from start to finish. And when I get done with this series, I think I will probably try to do that. So, the third book that I finished, and I finished this one yesterday, is Theodore Boon, The Activist by John Grisham. This is the Theodore Boon series is a set of, I guess we call them YA, middle grade level books, and they are basically lawyer books, but on a kid's level. And I absolutely love them. I think they're pretty good for the kids to read. I read The Activist, and it's exactly what the title is all about. It hits where Theodore Boon has some things happen in his life, and there's some stuff happening around town where he gets a chance to be a activist in his hometown, and he gets thoroughly involved in that. And that's fun to see. I think John Grisham does a really nice job of taking people through, young people through some of the terminology that you find in law. So like one of the big ones in this book was eminent domain, where the state was coming in to put in a building project, a $200 million building project, while the economy was in the tank. And a lot of people were questioning that building project, and Theodore Boon is one of them, and he becomes thoroughly involved in trying to make sure that this bypass, that's this highway that's supposed to be built around the city, does not happen, because that money can be used in other places. That money can be used, just for. He did not feel that the bypass was a necessary, needed item, and people should not be losing their land for something that is wasteful. So that was a really good book. I enjoyed that. I read that in 2 days. You could read it in an afternoon pretty easy, but I had baseball and stuff going, and we had some other activities, like we had church going, and then we had some afternoon activities as a family, so I didn't get to sit an entire afternoon. You could easily read this in an afternoon. It was, almost 300 pages? I think 289. Yeah, 289 pages. So that was a good book. And so what I'm working on at this very moment is American Caesar, the biography of Douglas MacArthur by William Manchester. And I am currently in the process of watching him try to take back the islands in the South Pacific, and that's been pretty interesting, watching his relationship with the other politicians, the other generals, and is he going to be able to keep his promises? And Douglas MacArthur at this point is stationed in Australia. He's been evacuated from the Philippines, and he's in Australia. So very interesting, a little slower paced. I'm not reading like huge chunks at a time. I'm just reading little bits and pieces here and there. The next fiction book I'll be working on is The Fugitive, another Theodore Boon book by John Grisham. The Fugitive I have no idea what it's about. It says, oh, they go after the fugitive Pete Duffy, and Theodore Boon has a part in capturing him, and now Theodore Boon is on the run to keep from being, having bad stuff happen to him. But anyway, so that was my reading. I'm also working on, forgot to mention this one, I'm also working on Ken Follett's Fall of Giants. Haven't read it in a few days. It is a very quick read, very good read. I'm glad I started this. And when I get done with these Theodore Boon books, I'll end up going back to this and trying to chunk that. I'd like to get that done in July. That's part of my July TBR, along with American Caesar. And I also will this week, I believe, be starting the biography of Thaddeus Stevens by Bruce Levins, I believe. I'm doing a buddy read with Peg over at the History Shelf, and I had started this earlier in the year. I read the first couple chapters, absolutely loved it, got busy. Again, the end of the school year is just hectic, and so I got busy and put it down and took it back to the library, and now I have some time to get it done, and Peg and I are going to do a buddy read, and we hope to do a video chat and put that up for you guys, so look forward to that. So now, before this video gets too long, let's look at some of the recent either purchases or things I have acquired through the mail. So I'll go with the non-book stuff real fast. I'll go through them real quick. As you know, I am a Hot Wheels and Matchbox collector, mainly Hot Wheels, but I find Matchbox cars every once in a while. And here is a 62 Mercedes-Benz 220 SE sedan that I found. Thought that was pretty cool. I don't know why. Sometimes certain cars hit me and they just look neat for one reason or another. That was one that I just thought looked pretty cool. So I picked that up at I think Walmart. Anyway, my wife and I had went to one of the antique dealers in one of our local towns, and while we were in there, she was looking at furniture and I was digging through comic books. And recently on the channel, you've noticed that I've picked up some G.I. Joe comics. Well, I picked up a handful of them again today, or not today, this last week, and I wanted to share those with you. My ultimate goal is to collect the entire run of the 1980s, into the early 90s, I believe, G.I. Joe comic book series. And I've got a handful of them. I don't have them all, obviously, but I've been having fun finding them here and there. But let me show you some of them. I'll just show you the covers. This is number 44 from February, and that is one of them I picked up. Here's number 35 that I picked up. And number 56. And number 53, and I love this cover. This is probably one of my favorite covers of all of them. And here's another favorite cover. This is number 42. So as you can tell, the ninjas were my favorite, the martial arts guys were my favorite characters some of my favorite characters on G.I. Joe when I was a kid. And here's number 36. And so I picked all those up. I did not pay all that much for them. I didn't think it was bad. I like to pick them up for cheaper, but I found them for, I think it was on average $4 per issue. So I didn't think that was too bad. All right, so let's get to the books. So here's a book that I got for free from our public library that they were getting rid of. This is William Shire's The Collapse of the Third Republic, an Inquiry into the Fall of France, 1940. I did not have a copy of this, and this is kind of it's a chunky monkey. And there's your author on the back. This is obviously from World War II. This is William Shire's pretty famous for his stuff with World War II. This is a Simon & Schuster out of New York, and it is 1969. So this was getting discarded from our public library. This weekend, our town had, I think it was on Saturday, we had what was called Bedford Days, and it was just basically a town-wide festival where we bring in different antique vendors, and they set up along Main Street, and then we have food vendors set up along Central Street. We had kids games, all like bouncy houses and dunk tanks and ring toss and knock over the milk bottles, all those type of festival games. They were all set up on one of the other streets, and it was a really good gathering for our town. I thought we had a really good showing, and my family, we just live just a little ways from there, a couple blocks from there, so we walked downtown and went through everything. And my daughter had a really good time. They had several people in the dunk tank, and one of them was my fellow coach on the baseball team. My daughter went and dunked him twice, my 4-year-old. So that was kind of fun to watch, and she absolutely loved the bouncy house. She was in there like 4 different times, and so we had fun doing that. And while we were downtown, one of the shops that was open was one of our bookshops, and my wife and I went in and we found some books, and I saw that she had the Theodore Boon books out on the shelves, and on my shelves, I don't know, can you see it up there? You barely see it. I just had the first 3 volumes of the series. There's 7 in all. And I found volumes 4, 5, and 6 in paperback, and wanting to support our local bookstore. I don't usually buy them in full price, but I bought them in full price, and so I got 4, 5, and 6 in that series: The Fugitive, The Activist, and The Scandal by John Grisham. These Theodore Boons. These are meant for about middle school age kids. I like them. Even adults can read them. I think they're nice little short stories, fast-paced. They are on a kid's level, and some of the things there's a couple things that happen where you're like, yeah, right. it would maybe not happen in real life quite like that, but it's not so far off the beaten path that you can't enjoy it. I enjoy these, and I highly recommend them if you've got kids in middle school that you're wanting to get hooked into good fictional authors. John Grisham, of course, is one of my favorites, but I would try these. So I do have plans to go and get number 7. I think I'm going to have her order in number 7, and then I'll have the entire series. And that will make it so that I have every single John Grisham book there is. So I'm pretty excited about that. The next thing that I got on the list here is in the mail on, what would have been yesterday, on Monday in the mail, I got the Smithsonian Magazine in the mail, the newest edition there. And of course we got some Egyptian stuff. It says The Secret Tombs of Saqqara, and pretty excited about this one. Not only has it got an article on the tombs, but it's also got an article on the Everglades, Thomas Jefferson and political intrigue. It's got stuff on New Orleans, and stuff, with the hurricane and Katrina. And then, what is it? Don't Call It Doo-Wop, the legendary vinyl record shop owner, a leading authority on the below. Okay, so some music stuff. So I always like Smithsonian because they have a wide variety of, just different types of articles. It isn't just American stuff. It is around the world as well. And so I look forward to digging into that. Put it in with the stack of other magazines I got to get to. So the last 3 books I wanted to show you were all in the mail. 2 of these are from Steve Donahue. Thank you, Steve. I ended up getting these last week at the very end of the week. It was either Friday or Saturday. I think it was Friday. I got them in the mail. And he sent me Stonewall in the Valley, Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson's, Shenandoah Valley Campaign, spring of 1862, by Robert G. Tanner. And so this is pretty awesome. I do not have this book. I don't have any of these books that got sent to me, so I'm real excited about that. This is from Doubleday and Company out of Garden City, New York, and it is 1962 is the original, it looks like. This is a 1976 edition. So anyway, real excited about that. So let me read the front cover to you. It says, in March of 1862, a Union army, the largest force ever assembled on the American continent, prepared to descend on Richmond. 2 months later, McClellan's mighty Army of the Potomac hovered menacingly on the outskirts of the Confederate capital. Few people in either North or South expected the Confederacy to withstand the fall of Richmond, when on May 28th, a dispatch from the Shenandoah Valley reached the beleaguered city. It stated simply, during the last 3 days, God has blessed our arms with victory. The dispatch was signed Major General T.J. Jackson, and by a daring series of rapid marches and sudden attacks, Jackson had smashed his opponents in the northern Shenandoah, eluded a converging horde of 50,000 Federal troops, and then disappeared, only to emerge a week later 100 miles to the south and win 2 new victories in as many days. After Jackson's sweep through the Shenandoah, McClellan's plans lay shattered. In proud but ill-defended Washington feared for its safety. The architect of this astounding reversal was a taciturn man, respected for his military prowess, often hated for his lack of tact. Some even thought him insane. Yet in less than 3 months, Stonewall had forged an army from a collection of raw recruits and had displayed a grasp of strategy and tactics rarely equaled in the annals of military history. To this day, the events in the Shenandoah during the spring of 1862 are studied in the military academies of Europe and America. In this, the first full-length study of the Valley Campaign since 1880, Robert G. Tanner analyzes the formation of a superb fighting force and its remarkable struggle against adverse odds. Yet Stonewall in the Valley is more than a military analysis of Jackson's achievements in the Shenandoah. It is also the story of the men of the Valley Army, told whenever possible in their own words, through the letters and diaries of soldiers enduring boredom, hunger, exhaustion, and fear, as they grew from untried volunteers into a veterans host, Stonewall's legendary Valley Army. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I always think that when you study the Civil War, you got to study Stonewall. Stonewall Jackson was one of the, arguably, to some people, one of the best generals in the Civil War. Definitely one of Robert E. Lee's best lieutenants. So anyway, very interesting. And the other book that Steve Donahue sent me is Mead at Gettysburg, A Study in Command by Kent Masterson Brown. This is a new book just out this year. Love the look of this book. Very excited for this book. Again, 2021, just came out, and it's from the University of North Carolina Press from Chapel Hill. It's all about General Meade and what he did at Gettysburg. And so let me read this one to you. Although he took command of the Army of the Potomac only 3 days before the first shots were fired at Gettysburg, Union General George G. Meade guided his forces to victory in the Civil War's most pivotal battle. Commentators often dismiss Meade when discussing the great leaders of the Civil War, but in this long-anticipated book, Kent Masterson Brown draws on an expansive archive to reappraise Meade's leadership during the Battle of Gettysburg. Using Meade's published and unpublished papers alongside diaries, letters, and memoirs of fellow officers and enlisted men, Brown highlights how Meade's rapid advance of the Army to Gettysburg on July 1st, his tactical control and coordination of the Army in the desperate fighting on July 2nd, and his determination to hold his position on July 3rd ensured victory. Brown argues that supply deficiencies brought about by the Army's unexpected need to advance to Gettysburg were crippling. In spite of that, Meade pursued Lee's retreating army rapidly. And his decision not to blindly attack Lee's formidable defenses near Williamsport on July 13th was entirely correct in spite of subsequent harsh criticism. Combining compelling narrative with incisive analysis, this finely rendered work of military history deepens our understanding of the Army of the Potomac as well as the machinations of the Gettysburg campaign, restoring Meade to his rightful place in the Gettysburg narrative. All right, and so look forward to that. I have been to Gettysburg, the battlefield, and I have toured that. My wife and I and my oldest daughter got to do that, and we went through the battlefield a couple different times. Once on a guided tour, and then we did another tour on our own. And so we have walked these battlefields that they're going to talk about. So I'm really excited to look at this and just see some more about what Kent Brown says about Meade at Gettysburg. You know, there's historians that go both ways, whether he did the right or wrong thing. I'm kind of in the middle. I have not yet taken a stand, you know, strongly one way or the other. I see both sides of it. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see this argument. So thank you, Steve Donahue. I really appreciate him sending those to me. He really knows what kind of books I like, and so I just thank you for that, Steve. Thanks. And then I got another one in the mail from William Fett, and he sent me Mapping for Stonewall, the Civil War Service of Jed Hotchkiss by William J. Miller. And so it's a little bit of an oversized book, a little bit bigger than the normal. So this is that Mead book, just kind of give you an idea how big it is. So this book is going to be really neat, especially as, you know, I read the book Stonewall in the Valley. This should go really well with that. And this book is full of just different pictures. And so like here's one of a letter, and then it talks about obviously mapping along the way. So there's another one of the map, and this thing's just full of different maps and stuff that were done during that campaign. So here's another one. This is let's see, sketch of the Battle of Belle Grove, Cedar Creek, Wednesday, October 19th, 1864. And so you kind of get the idea. This book is Elliott and Clark Publishing from Washington, D.C., and it is a 1993 book. And so I'm really excited to read this, especially read it alongside that biography or that military biography, Stonewall in the Valley. So that'll go hand in hand. So thank you to William Fett for that. I really appreciate that. And so, BookTube, I hope everyone is doing well. The weather has kind of settled down here in the Midwest. We had a terrible heat wave last week, and then at the end of the week, rain hit. And then we had a tornado drop northeast of where I live. We were at a baseball game, and my wife texted me, and of course I was at the game, in the game coaching, and so I didn't really see the text till after the game was all over. And she says, tornado drop northeast of Corning. I hope you're safe. Be careful. Please be careful. And so we weren't even expected to get this game in, and we ended up getting all 7 innings in before all the rains hit, and we even got an inning of JV in before the thunderstorm really started. And of course we got just poured on the drive home, and the wind was pretty bad, but the tornado was not even close to us, or at least at the time we were driving. How about I say that? And then we got home, and our ball fields are located by the 102 River, and there was a lot of water down at the ball fields. Needless to say, I went to walk from the bus to my car, and there was not a path that I could take that would keep my shoes dry, and the water was up over the tops of them, and I had some pretty wet feet. And if you know me well, I hate wet feet. And so our ball fields had our baseball field did not, but the softball fields had a nice layer of water. We got some pretty deep ditches that go around the fields, and they were all completely loaded. The river was up. My daughter and I went down there the next day to go play a little. We took our wiffle ball bat and stuff, and my 4-year-old, and we went down there and played. And it was more, I wanted to have fun with her. My wife wanted her out of the house for a little bit so she could get lunch around. So we went down there, and it was probably more of a recon for me to see how the fields were and what happened with the fields. And all the water drained off just that quick. It was filled up, and then it was gone. And then my daughter and I went down to the river, because like I said, the river runs right beside our ball fields, and we went walking down to the river because there's a dam down there, and we went exploring down there and showed my daughter the river down there. We hadn't done that before. I'd done that with my oldest daughter, but not my youngest, and so we went down there. And anyway, I am rambling here, but needless to say, we had a lot of heat, a lot of rain, and then the last couple days have just been pretty humid, but the temperatures have been nice. Last night's ball game was nice and cool for the most part. I guess at the very beginning, it was pretty humid, but as the game settled in, it wasn't too bad, and the night turned out to be a nice, cool evening. And so anyway, the weather's all settled down, BookTube. I hope everyone's settling down to some good books. If you've read any of these, let me know what you think in the comments section. Hope everyone's having a great day. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.